Okay, so let's get this whole thing wrapped up. So today, what I'd like to do in this video is, and I think probably only have one more video after this, putting it all together. This one is going to be doing some more foliage. So these guys are the little bits of extra foliage that we can add to the whole scene that I think will really make it come alive. So here we have some flowers, some like weed flowers, some tall grass, some dried leaves, and this is just some wild grass. And in the folder that I have selected uh, for Game 240, I have a bunch of all of these textures are in there. We haven't used Ivy, but we just kind of ran out of time to do that. And there's a couple other things. There's another one here that's like a bush, which we could use. You could use if you want. It's a nice little bush, but I think these extra four are quite enough. So we have to go and we have to incorporate this into our scene. So let's bring this, bring up Maya. Oh, we also need to make rocks. Yeah. Um, I like how the this auto frame thing is working. How did that go? I was like this. There we go. It looks a little weird. So I've already made some rocks here, but I'm gonna show you how to make these rocks super easy. Another thing that I did was I added to the tree some roots. These roots are pretty easy to create. I'll show you super quick how to do them. Basically, you just do a multi-cut. You cut along here, something like this. Select these faces and then pull it out. Now notice you can also hold down shift and click on this and it says extrude. So you can pull it out like that. I might raise that up a little bit. You can make this smaller. Basically you have to just be a little bit random. So think a little bit like a root. Think Groot. And we'll get this, make it smaller, and shift, make it smaller. We can also make branches off of this root. And cut along over here. Click on this face, shift, pull it out, make it smaller. Make it smaller. And probably one more. Now the other thing is we need to make this the top of it smaller. Before we do that, let's grab these guys here. Then we'll also want to make these guys, like I said, smaller. I may want to grab these verts, bring them up. Be careful not to move them too much so that it doesn't distort that top, these top pieces over there. These faces, which is kind of what it's doing right now. That's something you have to be aware of if you have some n-gons like that. Usually that's fixed just by triangulating things, and that'll make it work a lot better. You also see that our texture is super stretched, so we can add some extra edge loops in there to fix things up a little. But we're gonna want to bring these down. this a little bit more straight. Make it follow the path a little. Okay, so we have that going. Let's triangulate that. And then we want to UV these guys. Pretty easy. Oh, make sure also that you don't have anything like this. Notice how it's sticking up like that. You're going to have roots floating into the in the air. We don't want that. And some of them I have already pointing down because in the environment, I make it stick up just a little bit to make the trees stick up a little, and that way you can make some nice little that way it looks a lot more realistic if the ground goes up a little bit higher, because the roots are pushing up the ground and there may be some erosion from the fall off of that. You can delete the underside. That helps with UVing. Just select the whole top. And then we can go in here. I could deselect those guys. Go into our UV editor. Where is it? There we go. So that's where we cut it out from. Instead, what I'll do now is I'll just add normal based to it. And there's our tree root. And then I'll unfold it. Just like that. I may want to make that a little bit bigger in the UV so that the textile density is a little more dense. Over here, create normal based. Over here. I never know where it is unless I'm using the toolkit. So I'm going to find that and click unfold. How's that look? Looks good. All right, so that's how you make those roots. I've already exported these trees, so I can export them again. That's another thing that we'll have to do, is to import them. Let's see, so I deleted the history on that. Let's make some rocks. Okay, so to make the rocks, you make a, let's see, an object that is platonic solid. It doesn't mean it's friend zoned. We'll go to inputs and we'll change the subdivisions to 1 so that we get a little bit more subdivisions going on there. Let's squish it a little bit, squish it down a little bit. Now here is where we need to add some more randomness to it. And this is also why we don't use a sphere, is because the sphere gets a lot of verts all together bunched up at the tip, and the it just doesn't look right. So what we can use here is we use the soft selection. If I double click on the tool settings here, I can open up soft selection and select here. And then I turn it on by pressing B, and you'll notice that when I press B that the most affected one is yellow, the least affected is blue. So it's at 0.5. If I change it higher, you'll notice that almost all of it is selected. So if I move it right now, the whole thing is going to move pretty much. But if I change it to 1, you'll see that less of it is moving. So we can do a lot of different stuff with the with soft selection. Then let's put it down to 0.5. Get a little bit more detailed stuff. So this, you have to act kind of randomly a little bit. Let's bring it down to 0.3. And you also don't want to have these faces that are, you'll notice that some of them are, well, actually I've modified them already. You don't really want any flat faces where you have some verts already that could be modified. So that looks pretty good. I'm kind of going off my own head here, but you probably could benefit a lot from looking at some reference. And then let's rotate this around. Kind of easier to make the modifications if we're looking at it right side up, at least for me. Alright, so that's rock enough. And we'll look over here or find out where it is. There we go. And that's our rock. I'll call that new rock. Oh, well, that's unusual. Weird. I don't know why it's naming that. Anyways, we have that. We can also have some small rocks as well. If I hold down Shift while I'm in object mode, I can clone this. Another faster way than doing Control D. Now, one thing, especially about rocks, especially about these platonic solids, is that they come with their UVs already set up, and we can re-UV them, but the UVs are kind of nicely set up so that all we have to do really is click unfold, and then we turn on the textile density, and it should be pretty okay there. Do the same thing for this guy, unfold, but this one we'll want to make a lot smaller. So this is our second rock, and this way we'll have textile density that is pretty similar to this one. It still could be different. It still could be smaller. There. Okay, so there's two rocks. These guys I'm going to move out of the way because those were demonstrations. And then also we want to make some leaves. So to make these leaves, I've already made some of them over here. We do what we've done before so many times. We take a cube and we remove all of the faces. Oops. Now this can happen a lot. Notice how it's yellow. You know something's weird. Press B and all those, and you're out of soft selection mode. We want to bring in our leaf texture. All right, here we go. This is try 4, I think. Many interruptions. So I was just about to make some dead leaves. So we're going to create another cube, and I think in my hyper shade I have like 4 or 5 different dead leaves shaders. So we're going to select faces, select all the bottom faces of this cube, go back to our object mode, center our pivot, thank you very much, and then we're going to put this flat onto the grid, and then Oh yeah, what was also funny was I started doing one of the iterations and I had my mic turned off, so that was a lot of fun. All right, so we have this, and then we have our hypershade. I'm going to add another leaf logo. Leaf. Yeah, I was just thinking about digital illustration. We're going to add another leaf shader. So that's a Lambert. We're going to call this new leaves again. And then I'm going to go into color, add a file node, find a file. Foliage assets, dead leaves, albedo. There's our albedo. And click on this and go to transparency. Add file. Find our opacity map. Right down there. And there we go. So now we're going to apply it to this face. So dead leaves again. Now you'll notice that the leaves are really big. So easy fix. Just go in here, click normal based. Ka-ching. It brings it all out there. And remember, we can't really see what these leaves look like in the UV editor, so we can go to textures and select opacity, and that would enable us to see what these textures look like. It won't change what it looks like in the scene, of course. So now we want to choose two leaves that are not too terribly unique. Like this one would be really obvious. So I'm going to choose this one and this one as like differing ones, but not too terribly unique. And I'm basically just going to cut with multi-cut around these guys so that we can use them, so that we can just separate them. And then cut over here, cut here, cut here. All right. Now we have those. I'm going to select these outside faces and delete that. Then I'm just going to select one of these guys. I'm going to go to Edit Mesh and Extract. And then click in the background to deselect. And now we have our leaves down here, but I want to ungroup these guys. Ungroup. We have one more group. Oh, no, we don't. So we're good. All right. So this is an empty transform. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to select both of these guys, center the pivot, delete the history, and then I'm going to name these. So here's leaf 1, leaf 2. I don't know why this is doing this example tree stuff. That's irksome. Okay, we have leaves. Excellent. And pause this. Okay, so what's next? We still have some weeds, the weed flower, some cattails. So let's make some cattails. I made these guys over here. This is what we're going to essentially make. And instead of just having single ones, we're going to have multiple together. And I'm not going to use the scattering for these because I want to put them in very distinct places in the scene. So to start with, I think probably the easiest way to make these guys is I'm just going to make a cylinder. 6 subdivisions. Make it really thin. Make it short. I'm going to bring it closer to the guy so I can see the relative size of the cattail. I think that's probably a good size of the cattail. Oops. There we go. Moving out. Now we're going to make the up area, the stalk going out on the top. Just select the top faces. Control E. Move it up a little. Make it smaller. Control E, move it up, select the verts, and then merge to center. So that's edit mesh, merge to center. Let's do somewhat similarly underneath. We're going to go to faces, Control E, down, scale in, and then Control E, move it down. And I'm going to also give it some different, a few different segments to it so that we can bend it a little bit. Okay, that looks good. Now we need to texture it. Let's delete the history. Now you may wonder, where are we going to get the texture for this? It's not listed in the in our thing. So with this one, it's interesting. There can be issues if you use a texture that has an opacity map on something that is completely opaque. So I may just go into our hypershade and make a new texture, a Lambert, without an opacity map. And then just bring in our leaf texture. So I've seen it happen many times where, like, if you have a texture that has opacity to it and you're not using it as like you know, a texture with opacity, the drawing order has issues. So having no opacity map will definitely fix that. So this is going to be, click on this guy, and we're going to call this cat tails. And we'll close that. Select this guy. Right click, bring it down here, look for cat tails. There we go. So it has everything, and I've had cattails like in my house before, so they look very much like this color. And we're going to smooth the edges, and then we're going to, let's give it all a big hand. I mean a big cylinder map. So cylindrical. And let's look over here. And then we're going to grab these, move them to the back. You can do it, right? What? There we go. That was weird. Okay. That's about right. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so that should do it. So now we just want to make sure that everything is in the right spot. So you can see that it's a little bit funky over there. You can see the leaves on the side. So let's select these guys in the middle. Okay, I'm going to just go in there. I'm going to select the edges over here, just in that one spot there, and the edges down here. And then I'm going to cut those edges. And this way, I can go to UV shell and I can select just the stuff from the cattail, or just the where the seeds are. And then this is all basically a color. So this one and this one, I'm just going to put on the side. Like that. And this one, I'm going to put inside of one of these leaves. You won't really notice that these are, that they're leaves at all. There. Actually, these guys could be a little bit lighter. The stems are a little bit light. So I'll bring it over here. And notice I'm making it really small. This is so that I'm just using the color. You won't notice that there's any textile density issues at all, because it's just using a color. Ah, much better. Much, much better. Okay. So now we have one. I'm going to start to bend this guy. There we go. If you use the multi-cut tool and you start the bend outside of the object, you'll do a slice straight through the whole object. There's a little pro tip for you. Pro was one of those words that was really popular in the 80s. Pro this, pro that. Pro tip. Back in the day when hacking actually meant something, and it didn't just mean you had a fancy diet. I'm hacking my body. Hacking your body is kind of more what the Borg do. That's actual, like, hacking. Just the normies are sad that they don't understand what hacking is the whole deal. Okay. Off soapbox rant. Then I'm going to bring this center point down here, and I'm going to rotate it. There. Okay, so we have that set. Now I'm going to duplicate this, hold down Shift, and click on it in object mode. Then I'll change the scale of some of these guys. Change some of the rotation of some of these guys. And then I'll change the rotation in this area as well. That looks suitably randomized. Great. Select those guys, combine them together, delete our history, bring the center point down to the bottom of these guys, move it up to the above the grid, bring it down just a tiny bit, move the center point back up to the grid. Okay, we have 2 of those guys. Now comes the ones that we haven't gotten to yet because of all these distractions. Is some of these other grass things. So we've already done the grass texture. And then we have these leaves. So what I did was, and you could figure this out on your own. I believe in you. That's why I'm here. That's why I came. That reference is going to be missed. What I did was I applied just a basic the opacity map to these guys. What I'm also going to do is cut these guys up. So let's cut them up and see what happens. So this right here should be weed grass, I think. Graph material on selected object. That's the billboard. Let's see if we can find it. Ah, yes, it's wild grass. That's wild grass. Ah, there we go. So now we can see that just the light was on the wrong side of it. I'm going to rotate him 180 so we can see the light a bit better. So there's our little wildflowers. All right, let's cut them up. So the ones that we want to use, that's a good question. Again, we want this to be kind of... well, these guys will be less... we won't have them appearing a whole lot. We could probably have 2 different kinds of wildflowers if we want. I may cut these guys up. There. I have that one and that one. And we may also want to, like, within these guys, just go in here. This is like the super, like, meatball surgery, as MASH would call it, way of doing this. Okay, so here I think I'll get rid of this one and this one, and then I'm going to take this one and detach it. This one is going to connect with this one over here, and this one will be its own thing, so I'll detach that one also. Now the thing about this is that it's flat, so it's going to be pretty obvious that it's flat. Problem with this is that it's, if we move it like that, I can't remember if, I'm not sure if we go in here and we select these edges, if it's going to change the verts themselves. I'm going to try it and see what happens. We shall learn together. Cut. It may just be UVs. Yeah, just UVs. Let's see if there's a way to detach the edge. So usually in situations like this, and see, I've used this for so long that, you know, there's some things I'm just not sure about because it's just such a huge program. Okay, it didn't detach it. I wanted to extract it. Extract. There we go. So what I was thinking of doing was dragging this, moving it out a little bit like so. Obviously, we don't need this top area over here, so we could do a multi-cut from here to over there. Go into our face mode and select that one and delete it. And then we'll want to go over here, select this edge, and move it out just a little bit so we get some variation to it. Now, as for the flowers, that's a little tough because the flowers are not going to be, you know, pretty and sticking up. They're going to be flat. So what can we do about that? So we can only fake it unless we actually have the texture that shows the flower right at the top, which is probably the best idea. What we could do is we could take one of these flowers right here, and I could duplicate it, and then I could turn it on its side. Let's move the center point. And I can end up cutting it. Like so. And then we have this section over here. We can pull that in. So that's kind of what we can do with the flowers. Then we can end up going in here, cutting this off, cutting off the flower, grabbing this one and bringing it up. So this is the really quick and dirty way of making a flower. And like I said, we have so much stuff going on here. Although we don't want to make something that people are going to be like, whoa, that's a horrible flower. Why would they put something like that in there? So we do want it to be somewhat consistent with the style. Okay. So that's cute. That works. This one, I'll cut off the top off of this too. Take this guy. All right, there we go. And then there. And let's cut down the middle of this. And this one, I'm just going to make this just a second little piece that is next to this one over here. Add a little bit of three-dimensionality to it. And grab these verts over a little like that. Here's our other flower. Let's cut off the stems on that, like the cruel person that we are. Grab this little flower top and clone it. Bring it on over, put it at the top. Alright, there's that. Then let's cut down here and around up there. Grab these verts over here, move them in a little bit, just add a little bit of three-dimensionality to it. Alright, so there are our little weeds. Let's combine that one over there. And that's our weed 1. And here, let's combine that. Weed flower 1. Why is it not doing all of these guys? What? There. G. And then put it down at the base. Put the center point down at the base. Let's move it up just a tiny bit. All right. We are almost done with all of our extra foliage. There's our other 2 pieces. Now here's our this other grass. What are we going to do here? So I'm actually going to move this. I can't really fully see with all the stuff in the background. So I'm going to move it down so it's flat. There. So now I'm going to do the same thing like with the flower, and I'm going to cut these guys so I can get the right one that I want. That one I want. This one. This one. And 1, 2, 3. Maybe this one. And this one. All right, so we'll cut these guys out. And, oh, I know. Do I want that one? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's good enough. Then I'll select these guys. Oh, did we fix this? Let's make sure our leaves, our flowers over here are good. No, we didn't change them. So I'm going to call this weed flower 1. This other one's going to be weed flower 2. Let's separate these guys. So we go into our face mode. Then we go to edit mesh, extract, G, G, G. Now we have them all separated. And we find them over here. And then we just go to ungroup. Make sure you keep clicking on all the grouped parts so they all get ungrouped. And then delete all of your empty transformations. And there we go. All right, now let's rotate these guys 90 degrees. It's going to go to -180. Oops. Okay. No, that's not what I want. -1, yep. -180. There we go. All right. And now we need to arrange them. So with this, I think I'll do what I had done with the grass too, and also with the flowers. Just bring a cut down the middle of them. Now, the one thing that can be a little annoying about doing grass this way is that we don't really have it be as pretty as it was when we did the regular grass. And by pretty, I mean we have all these extra verts on the side. So if we try to move them, it's going to move a little bit in a mildly unpredictable way. So a trick for this, which I think I showed before, is when you're in the vert mode, you can still change the center point, but it's temporary, and I can rotate it just like this. So it's pretty handy like that. This can be very useful, especially if you get really fast at it. So I can go over here, I can select these guys, move that center point down to the base over there. Sometimes the trick on this is how can you do it in the fastest way possible. Usually game dev can take many years, and so if you can quickly produce quality assets, then the higher-ups can be quite happy with you on that. And usually that only comes from doing it many, many times, having a lot of practice. Alright, so we have these guys. I want to duplicate a couple of them. And we want to make these guys be somewhat, they also have to be, the center point, now that we're in object mode, has to be at their base. And they all want them to be in the same Y value, or just essentially similar up-down location. Okay, let's select these guys, hold down X, snap them down, bring them down just a tiny bit more. There we go. All right, we're almost there. That one's a little low. And this one I may have just a little bit more kind of spread out. Okay. Cool, so this is weed grass. So I like that. I'll show you what it looks like. A little on the spread out side. And we'll combine these guys together. And delete the history. We'll call this weed grass. Okay, so this is what we've created here, finally. These little guys. There's another one that's a bush that we could also do, but I think we've done enough here. Um, I love this auto focus or auto frame. Okay, so now we have all these guys set up. They have all good name. I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna put all the rest of everything in just one big. I'm gonna move it all into unused. No, not the mansion pieces, or that dude, or that camera, or this ping pong paddle. Another movie reference. Okay, so we have leave 1, leave 2. Ah, those are cat tails. Rock, rock 1, flower, flower 2, grass, wheatgrass. All right, so we're good with that. Let's delete the history. Let's grab all these guys. Press X. Move them all down to the middle. That looks about right. Wait a second. Something weird's going on with this one. Aha. I thought so. Our wheatgrass didn't have the right center point. Bring that down into there. Sometimes if the center point doesn't work the way you want it to, you have to reset the tool. Okay. Good. Let's bring these guys back. And save this. Let's save it out as a different one. With weeds. And so let's select all these guys again. Make sure we freeze our transforms too. And then let's start exporting them. Export each one of these guys. And this is big rock 2. I'm going to make everything 4 so I remember what they are. And hide it. Cat tails 4. I think you can figure this out. I'm going to pause it. All right, so we've exported all of them. Save this. Now we're going to bring all these guys into Unreal and set it all up. So I'm going to pause this and come back in a second. I'm going to import them all, and then in the next video we're going to arrange it all, set up the lake, and make sure we know how to do the trees, and paint the foliage, all that stuff. So essentially the next one's finalizing it, but remember also that to change it to the nighttime scene with exponential height fog, that is a different file or a different video that's not in the series. It just look for changing a sunny day, a sunny scene into a nighttime scene. All right, 1 second. All right, so I'm back. So the trees, let's see. I think I have some new trees in here. And let's look for those guys. Tree. Trees. Example tree. Okay, let's try this one. Oh, duh. Oh my gosh. No, I didn't export the new tree. Where did our new tree go? There it is. Sorry about the jump scare there. Dachshunds, man. Dachshunds are very noisy little things. Okay. So there's our tree. We're going to export that tree. Oh, we need to put our tree at 0, 0, 0. There we go. I already had the freeze transforms going on. And I'm going to export that selection. Trees, example tree, new underscore big tree. And let's go back to Unreal. Bring that in. 100. Import all. And new big tree. So our new big tree has the different roots on it. So that looks pretty cool. And then let's look at the older trees. The older trees, I did have some, but so the thing that you're going to need to do about your trees when you import them, if you haven't imported them already, is you're going to need to change the the shader around. Okay, you can see it's hovering a little bit. So you can see the shader, there's all this yellow surrounding it. This means that when we go into our, when we're checking our material, we have, we've changed on this main node, we've changed it from the blend mode, which was translucent, we've changed it to masked. This will enable us to have a nice shadow in the ground. I've also added, put 0 in the specular. You can create a 0, one of these nodes, by holding down 1 and clicking the left mouse button, and then you'll see the value is over there. I think I also might have gone over subsurface scattering, and this is pretty easily done by holding down 3 and clicking on that. This is like a 1 vector, this is a 3 vector. So the 3 vector presumes that it's RGB. And subsurface scattering, if I haven't gone over it, because I made so many videos, I don't remember if I've done this yet. It helps to make when you're looking at a leaf from behind, if there's a light source coming from behind it, it'll have a bit of a glow to it, like a mild transparency. But when there's a light source on top of it, there will be no transparency. So it's an opaque thing. So of course you just drag this in. To make subsurface you have to change the shading model from default lit to subsurface, and that will help to create this. The reason I put a 0 in the specular is because if I didn't, you would see a little bit of specularity on this, and we don't really want any specularity on these leaves. So apply that and save it. Okay, so we have our trees in. Now we want our other foliage in. So I'm going to bring all these guys just into the foliage section. So we'll go into here. We have our small rock. Nope. Our small rock 4, our weed flowers, our grass, weed grass, and was there anything else? Did we export cattails? Yeah. Dead leaf and cattails and big rock. Good thing I put the 4 on there. All right, so I'm going to bring all those guys in here. Probably not the best organization method, but sometimes can't make everything perfect. Make a little more room. Let the puppies out. Okay, let's bring in our cattails. Make sure those cattails look good. Look at those. They look great. All right. Those look good. Let's bring in our big rock. That's pretty good. Oh, we need to change the texture of the material. We have our dead leaves. Let's bring those in. Okay. So now one of the reasons that this is not working too terribly well is because we have some Z fighting going on there. Now it's fixed. So that could probably be fixed by going into the object itself. Let's see if we can edit those guys. Let's re-export these leaves. So let's select both of them, bring them up just a tiny bit. Freeze the transforms on them, and export this one. Export selection. And this is going to be our dead leaf. 4B. Yes. And select the other one. Export selection. Dead leaf 4A. Or that one. Go back into Unreal. And let's see what happens if we just drag these guys in, because I know I already had them. Hopefully it should replace them. There we go. So I brought them up and it got rid of the Z fighting. So good. All right, so we have that. We have our small rock. And now we need our, where's our grass? Here's our wheat flowers. Okay, we have to fix the UV or the material on that. And our wheat flowers. So you can see how hazy they look. Oh. Now that one's a little bit off. So let's fix the shaders on these. So weed flowers. Now the weed flowers, it brought in the wrong ones there. That's not the right texture for that. You can see it only brought in one. So let's bring in the proper ones for this. So we have all these guys. We brought in the weed flower albedo, opacity, and AO. There we go. Oh, okay, it fixed it. select these guys and remove that. Here's our weed flower material. So like I said, we need to make these into not translucent but masked. And then we lose our opacity mask, but then we plug it in here and we're back to it. Now we need to put a 0 in our specular so we don't see any weird wacky stuff going on. And then we want to put change the main shader to subsurface. Hold down 3, press the left mouse button, change the color to a darker green. Plug this in subsurface color and click OK. So now if we look at our weed flowers, look much better. Look at that. Aren't they cute? This is our wheat grass. That needs to be fixed. So our wheat grass texture has disappeared. Oh, I see. I had to change that name. That's why. Grass albedo. Because we put them all in the same folder. Although I wonder if Unreal would still do that, since they have the same name. So we have the new texture, and we're looking for our weed flowers, our wheat grass. That's the static mesh. So we need a new material. Nope. We need a new material for our weed grass. And then we grab our weed grass textures rather. Bring these guys in. This is our AO. This is our base color. This is our roughness. Not sure if that's going to be necessary. We'll bring it in anyway. And then our opacity. Of course, we have to go into our main node and change it to masked. And so then we bring the opacity into opacity mask. Let's put a 0 in the specular. Let's bring in a 3 vector for our subsurface scattering. Get a darker color green. Click on this guy, change it to subsurface. Bring this into subsurface color. And click apply. Save. Oh yes, and then oh yes. There's our weed grass material, and we're going to grab this, put that in there. There. Darn it, I was afraid of that. It's hovering. Let's re-export our wheatgrass. Hide our leaves. Oh, somehow it got disconnected. And then look for our wheatgrass. Did I not? No, I know I did it. Well, that's unusual that that happened. Gotta roll with it, though. When things like that happen, you're like, it shouldn't happen like that. But it did. File. Find our wheatgrass. Transparency. Find our opacity map. Select this. Go down here. Find our new wheatgrass. Alright, so what I had noticed was that if I look at it from the front, you can see it's hovering. I don't want it to hover. There. Much better. Freeze our transforms. Export it once again. And this is wheatgrass for export. Yes. Go back into Unreal. Find our wheatgrass 4. All right, good. We have our new stuff. Our dead leaves, our rocks, our cattails, our flowers, and our wheatgrass. Now let's also go back in and check out so this is weed flowers. There we go. We did all that. One thing we forgot. We need to make it two-sided. Click on our mesh. If you can't figure out what material it is, it's good to just click on the object and then click on the material that's connected to it. Two-sided. Save. And that's it. Now we can see that it's textured. And we can bring it into our foliage. So I'll bring in wheat flour, these guys. And then bring in our wheatgrass. And our dead leaves, 4 and 4B. So that's all of our foliage. Let's see what it looks like if we put in some leaves. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that cute? There's our leaves. And we can get rid of them with this. Let's check out our weed flowers. Those look lovely. And our weed grass. No, our weed grass is incorrect. It's using the wrong shader. There we go. So our oops. Let's click on this. Wild grass. Weed grass. That's what we want. There. Alright, so the one thing though that we do want to change with these guys is we do want to change the min-max size. So the min, we might want to make that 0.5 and the top one is 1.5. And get rid of that. We can change that up. We'll also do that for, we'll leave the leaves the same, but the weed flowers, we can also do the same with that. But yeah, let's do that 1.5 and do the same with the other one. 0.5 and 1.5. All right. So there we go with that. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our whole scene together. And that means that we're going to make a little pond. And it will just be putting everything together, and that will be our last video on making this mansion. So there you are. I hope that I've gone over everything well and not too terribly fast. There's a lot of stuff to go over, but we'll do the closing in the next video. Thank you for watching.